He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
This is the Alex Marlow Show. I'm Alex Marlow, and I'm on the road today, again, in an undisclosed location. It's kind of funny because you have these little stresses when you're in the podcasting game. One of the easiest things to do is actually record the show. It's sort of the setup, negotiating with guests and timing, and then travel schedules to make sure you get everything in. And one thing for me that I decided today is that I slept in the bed back there yesterday, but I feel like it's kind of awkward to have that in people's minds while we're on the show, which is why I'm bringing it up, to make it as awkward as possible for the audience. So I was really to make sure the room was pristine. I said to the housekeeper, I said, could you make it look like no one has ever slept in here? So it looks just like a catalog, maybe like the IKEA showroom, where no one's actually spent the night there, because I don't want to have people have to think about that stuff. But that is the nature of things. It is the blessing and curse of always being able to get shows in on the road. I think in yesteryear, if I was going to travel, then someone else would just do the show, right? No. Now I will do the show, and I will travel with all my gear. And sometimes you get lucky, and the natural lighting inside of the room that you're doing the room where you're doing the show temporarily is even better than your studio lighting. The natural light can be really great. Not the case in this room, but luckily I traveled with my lighting, and here we are doing a show. And those of you who don't see the visuals, I recommend subscribing on YouTube and Rumble, so you get the show. We do a lot of visual components to the show, but we're rolling today, and we got a lot of news to get into. But first of all, I want to remind you about the opportunity to watch Call Sign Courage, the new movie. Matt Lohmeyer's story, the Space Force commander. He's the one who blew the lid off the military's DEI agenda. He saw how Marxist messaging, critical race theory, and rampant DEI training was changing the culture of the military. Suddenly, everyone was equal. They stripped away merit-based selection and promotions, and the lack of accountability, competency, and effectiveness had actually become a domestic threat. It's well put. He spoke up how it was tearing apart the military's unity, readiness, and the whole reason why we have a military in the first place. Lethality. That's the point, to win wars. I've been talking about this a lot. You guys have heard me talk about this. We need to reset in our mind frame where we have basically been treating our military endeavors as though we are just trying to fight to a stalemate. No, we need to fight towards victory. Victory is a value. So we need to fight and win wars. Anyway, so after he did that, they broke into Lohmeyer's home. He was spied on and threatened, but he didn't back down. So career officers kicked him out. Then President Trump swooped in, made him the Undersecretary of the Air Force so he could solve the problem. So when the stakes were high, this was a guy who stood up, and his story is available at salemnow.com. Call Sign Courage, the Matt Lohmeyer story. Watch it, buy it on DVD, salemnow.com. Misty, we should try to get him on the show. We should try to talk to him. Why not? Super interesting guy. Let's make a note to do that. All right, let's get in the news. Government is open 43 days. Democrats got nothing out of it. I'm trying to figure out if they got anything at all. And we're going to debate healthcare coming up, but that was always going to happen. So literally nothing. And we could conceivably do this all again in a little bit, because we just don't have that much of, it's very temporary, the amount of funding that's been allocated to this point. So we're 90 days away from potentially another shutdown. And then what are we going to get out of that? So for a lot of you feel like your life was no different. Mine was no different. I had one delayed flight. So I figured that was shutdown related. I don't know. But for other people, that this was their paycheck. This was their ability to get certain benefits. This was, military pay, air traffic control pay. When all that is being held up, then we are making the country a worse place. And the question is that even though the Democrats got nothing out of this and it was a joyous occasion, does the general vibe in the country, does it suit Republicans or Democrats? And this is one thing that we've got to keep a close eye on, because we're only 1 year away from the midterm election and a super high stakes election, because if the Democrats win, we're going to be spending the last 2 years of Donald Trump's historic presidency not talking about our agenda. We are going to be talking about impeachments. We're talking about investigations. We're talking about how many criminals are in Donald Trump's administration. And it's just not the sort of thing that is a good use of our time. And it will be a colossal travesty for this country if we're not able to use the Donald Trump his leadership as an opportunity for us to thrive and grow. And so we're going to put that at risk if we don't make sure that we're on top of the messaging. And so even though I think the Republicans won this particular shutdown battle, we need to convince people that the Democrats are not providing a better alternative than what we're providing. And that's going to take some big steps, because if people feel like things are too expensive, and they do, if people feel like it's too hard to get homes, and they do, if people feel like that the president hasn't made substantial policy changes, then we're in for a long last 2 years of Trump's administration, and not a guarantee. You know how I was kind of feeling like it was guaranteed that J.D. Vance was going to win, or some other Republican was going to win. But if you look at it, there's so many things that have been on President Trump's agenda that we haven't accomplished yet, or weren't the rip-roaring successes that we wanted. I mean, I couldn't have been more excited about DOGE. It seemed like it went okay. The prospect of ending the Ukraine war, that hasn't happened yet. The H-1B talk, which I'll get back into in a second, has clearly gone in the wrong direction. And it just does feel like we haven't made a progress on healthcare, not enough progress on inflation. We made some. I mean, egg prices are down. There's a lot of prices down, but not everything. I'm just saying, don't get cocky here, because there's a lot of victories coming for President Trump. Just the fact that he's starting to enforce our immigration laws, the peace in the Middle East, the peace breaking out around the world. I think that the crackdown on crime across the country, all of that is worth the presidency, but we need to make sure that it's not close enough where they can cheat. And I don't see us doing that yet. I don't think we're there. And we're spending a lot of our time fighting amongst ourselves, which is just remarkable. I was just looking at the stories that caught my eye today, and it's just one after the next of Republicans and conservatives, and people who are not necessarily conservative anymore, but clearly speak to conservative audiences, fighting with themselves for all sorts of different reasons. And why this is, I don't know. Maybe it's where they left the X platform and went to Blue Sky, or Bluey as it is known. And they provide us a lot of great angry content over on Bluey. But I wonder what's going on here, because it just seems like my entire feed on social media is always conservatives fighting amongst themselves. The latest one that I saw, Dan Bongino fighting with Tom Massey. And I got to say, saying that they're having some conflict about what FBI Director Patel is doing, and the details of it, you can go down the rabbit hole on your own if you're inclined. But Massey's criticizing the FBI, which is fine to do, but this just Massey's a grandstander and doesn't accomplish anything other than to get attention for himself. And Bongino has to fight with him, and Bongino left a very lucrative job in commentating to try to help the country, and now he finds himself fighting with Republicans. It doesn't seem great there. Of course, what's gone on with the biggest online podcasters, Tucker Carlson, who's always been good to me in the past, but not just platforming, but promoting Nick Fuentes, who built his whole career trying to destroy Charlie Kirk, and then Candace Owens, who is now implying that Charlie Kirk's family members and the people closest to Charlie, who Charlie was trusted more than anyone on earth, were the ones who were responsible for his murder. And it just, even entertaining that stuff is of course going to divide wedges within the right. And then the left is using Epstein now. The latest one they're using Epstein to try to divide conservatives because they feel like that they can do this. This is why, as Comer mentioned to me on Monday's show, that every time he tries to advance something in the House Oversight Committee, he has to dodge Epstein stuff. And if you look at establishment media today, it is nonstop Epstein. Everything is Epstein, Epstein. And we're starting to get Epstein releases. He claims he gave Russians info on Donald Trump in order to try to take down Trump. Michael Wolff, Ann Coulter unearthed this. Michael Wolff, the fabulous author, not fabulous, fabulist author, had recommended to Epstein that he frame himself as an anti-Trump person so that he could gain political goals from that. As I brought up on yesterday's show, Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, so it feels like Trump's in the clear here. But yet they're going to imply that there is some sort of a DOJ cover-up, which after the way Pam Bondi released the Epstein Files Part 1, it's a very good line of attack for them. So that said, obviously, I think if there's anything incriminating against Donald Trump, in the Epstein files, I fundamentally believe that it would have came out during the Joe Biden administration. Don't see any reason why Joe Biden, who did everything to get Trump, I wrote an entire book about it called Breaking the Law, New York Times bestseller, very successful, and about all of the efforts that most people don't even fully grasp how much time was spent towards trying to get Donald Trump by the Joe Biden administration. If they were sitting on something incriminating in Epstein files and didn't release it, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't connect with anything that we have going. So now our latest fight that we have going with amongst conservatives is H-1Bs. And we're all of a sudden going through something which I thought this was asked and answered, but you saw the clips yesterday that I played. I played President Trump saying that we don't have enough talent here in America, so we need to import it. And then Kristi Noem saying we're going to bring a bunch of visa holders in so long as they want to be here for the right reason. Of course, I disagree with both points. We have more than enough talent in America to do everything we need to do. And in fact, American families need to be honored by giving their children the opportunity to thrive before we start importing competition. This needs to be part of the American experience. And then Kristi Noem saying, well, if they want to be here for the right reason, they can come in. No, that is not the point at all. It's being here for the right reason. There are lots of people who want to be here for the right reasons, meaning they like this country and want to help out. But those people are being brought in to compete with Americans for jobs and houses. And when we're coming into this AI revolution, and I will mention that my podcast or my Breitbart Confidential show that I do for premium members of Breitbart today, I do with John Nolte. This is the subject. We're talking about AI and particularly with regards to the arts, but how AI is going to replace certain jobs. Why do we want to make things more difficult on young Americans? They already are saddled with a terrible education system. School system seems to be getting worse by the minute. Because of social media, everyone's getting this arrested development. Their social skills are deteriorating. There is so many problems the younger people are facing. They lost part of their childhood because of the stupid lockdowns, and we're just going to import a bunch of people to compete with them. Why? How is that America first? And what I'm worried about is if Trump and Noem and others don't rein in this rhetoric and start talking about America as a homeland and as a culture and as a nation and as a people and not just as some sort of economy, where we need to just import people to stimulate the economy. If they talk about it that way, they're going to lose parts of the coalition. And then we're going to start getting the radical left because the left is an incredibly radical party. So, and here's an added benefit. If Republicans remain strong through 2028, then I do think the Democrats may have to nominate a halfway decent American, maybe a CEO type, someone who we're not going to agree with on the vast majority of stuff, but might at least be competent. As of now, we're going to get a incompetent radical. We're going to get a Gavin Newsom type who is going to be their nominee, someone who is completely beholden to the woke left and has never proven he can run anything. Running California into the ground. People are fleeing the state. We have the highest tax burden, the highest housing burden in the country. And all of the problems that he could have potentially solved, he hasn't made any progress on them whatsoever. Traffic's horrible, illegal immigration, crime, the fires burned down half the state, homelessness. I mean, he hasn't made progress on anything other than getting men to ruin women's sports, which is progress for some Democrats, believe it or not. So if we're strong, then they may feel like they're compelled to nominate a CEO type or someone who might actually not be horrible for the country. God forbid they win. So keep all that in mind. It's all troubling. And so I would like for us to get back to where we're controlling the conversation. And I just feel like the day is just spent fighting amongst ourselves. Chip Roy has introduced, Congressman Chip Roy, a bill to freeze mass migration. And I think he basically wants an H-1B ban. I think that's the point. He said on the Benny Johnson podcast, in Texas, we've been dealing with the brunt of the illegal immigration influence, but we're seeing the ramifications of the H-1B system and how it's been abused in addition to chain migration and diversity visas, which we've been trying to fix for a long time. And then he goes on to say, we're dealing a mass community that is growing up, that has no desire to assimilate and come here to become American, embrace Western civilization, embrace our Constitution. We've allowed the corporatists to define our national policy. It's just great language. It's just great language. So yes, end the H-1B system. I've got a bill that I will be introducing this week or next to freeze on all immigration until we achieve certain objectives. And I'm coming around to this. I played back a little bit of my show yesterday, as I often do, to make sure that, you know, we're getting all the content highlighted for all of you on my social pages and on Breitbart.com, et cetera. And I was trying to see, do I need to go further on the H-1Bs? Because I tend not to be an extremist. I tend not to run to an extreme on a personal level. And I admire a lot of hosts and commentators and internet personalities who try to take out a really extreme declarative position and carve that out, and they claim that territory, they urinate all over that territory and say, that's my territory. I'm the person who says we got to throw it away. And we can't throw away some of it. We can't reform it. We got to throw it out. I was thinking, do I need to be that guy on the H-1Bs? And I'm letting you all into the mindset of podcasters and commentators into this. You're not supposed to talk about this stuff. You're supposed to just do it. Just act like you've got all the answers. And I'm really entertaining it with the H-1B thing because we're so out of line here. And if conservatives, Republicans, America First conservatives and Republicans, people who are in charge of our immigration system in general, if they're not understanding that the public, Donald Trump's own base, is not interested in importing competition for ourselves and for our children, then I don't know what more we've got to do. Like maybe it is time to just say, then nothing, then no more immigration moratorium until we sort this thing out, until we start seeing people, no more immigration until the vibes improve. We need the vibes to improve. There's a lot of black pills, a lot of negative stuff going on. And part of it is that things seem unaffordable and it feels like we are not moving quickly enough to solve some of the problems we know about. So I just don't see the imperative to keep importing people into this country at this moment. More for the American workers, for the working and middle class. And the corporations who, of course, want to pay people less and don't care about culture, and they don't care about what it means to put down roots and have been a naturalized American and to grow up in this country, to be a part of the fabric of this country. They don't care about that. They care about their bottom line. And they care about cutting costs. Like, why should that determine these things? It shouldn't. And I just thought we debated this and we'd been through it, and now we're back on it. So, but let's try to do it civilly if we can. I mean, which is hard to do for some people. It's hard to do it civilly. This is where we also could lose ground to the Democrats, because it feels like we all of a sudden have gotten less civil online, where people are acting like Republicans who are imperfect on certain issues are the enemy, are the worst people imaginable. This is something the Democrats did, and it's hurt them a lot. John Fetterman had a quote that I pulled about the left and their negativity, and this has been making the rounds, but I think it's important to play it. Let me play this for you.
You said, quote, I've drunk deeply of the venom of both the left and the right. As a connoisseur, I can confirm that the most poisonous, the bitterest, is from the far left. That is pretty remarkable to hear you say that as an elected Democrat. Why?
No. It's just been my personal experience on this thing. And when I asked my digital team, I said, we're on all the platforms, really what's kind of the harshest, what's kind of the most personal? And the answer was immediate. He said, oh, blue sky, it's blue sky. And the difference is, the right would say really rough things and names, some names I won't repeat on TV, but the on the left, it was like they want me to die, or that we're cheering for your next stroke, or that's terrible, that depression. Why couldn't it?
I hope every liberal Democrat sees this, because I do believe in left-wing enclaves. They assume we're the evil ones, we're the Nazis, we're the fascists. And people who don't get their news from a variety of sources, I really do believe they feel that way in a genuine sense, that we're the threats, that we're the physical threats, we on the right. And to hear a Democrat, an elected Democrat, a guy who votes with Democrats 90% of the time, over 90% of his votes are party line Democrat votes. I know we all love Fetterman, the character, but he votes incorrectly all the time. And for him to say it's the Democrats who are the meanest, that the death threats come from them, is so profound. And I'll tell you who I blame. I blame Barack Obama for this. I think this is part of the culture that came from Barack Obama. The example I always cite, I think it's an important example, is Trayvon Martin, where we were told by the establishment media that Trayvon Martin was hunted down by a white guy and murdered. But then we learned it was a Hispanic guy, and they had fought, and Trayvon Martin was not cooperating and had fought back and had slammed George Zimmerman's head into the ground, and his head was all ripped up and all bloodied, and the media kept that from us. And then Barack Obama comes out and says, not everyone needs to chill out. This wasn't what we were told. This is a very unfortunate thing that happened, but there's nothing really to read into our racial politics from this. Instead, he comes out and he says that if I had a son, he would have looked like Trayvon, as if to send a signal to the people that there really is this big racial problem. There are racist whites or white Hispanics hunting down blacks. And all that did was create tension, because it made it so that the conservatives in America were portrayed as other, as evil, and bad people in general. And this is a left-wing tactic. And I don't want us to start using it. I'm starting to see that rhetoric in conservative commentariat that everyone is just a horrible person all the time. And I want to have some clarity, because there are certainly demonic people who are among us and are in prominent areas of American life. And I mean this in a genuine sense. I don't mean it as in a pejorative, that people who I do think are getting worked on by the devil and have a lot of their viewpoints that they're sharing are not genuine, that they're being informed by a satanic power. I believe that. But for the most part, people are generally ignorant. They're generally ill-informed. They're occasionally stupid, and they're just wrong. We're all wrong some of the time. And I do like the idea of trying to work through stuff by explaining our positions, argument, debate. Talking to Scott Jennings about this. Everyone loves the debates. That's a great way. It's very healthy to debate stuff. And that's the best way to approach things. And now it's that if you're a Democrat and you buck the Democrat Party 9% of the time, then the death threats are coming your way. So the other thing that I used to love about America that I feel like I'm less satisfied about this is I used to think our rugged individualism was one of our best attributes. And now, who's a more rugged individualist than Fetterman right now? He's just totally one of a kind in every sense of the word. And isn't that something that you can judge parts of it? Maybe you think he should wear a suit more often. Maybe he is, if you're a Democrat, you don't like that he bucks the party. Like, maybe you can not like something about him. But overall, the rugged individualism, that's always been my favorite thing as a news person. As a news person, one of the things that drew me to the news business in general was the excitement of getting to follow interesting people who I can't fully comprehend when they first meet your eye and you first read about them and hear about them, and trying to see what they're doing and the surprises that they can have. Just rugged individualism is just, it's what this country's all about. And he's saying that any individualism that he expresses is met with death threats online. So really, really disturbing stuff, and not happy to hear it. Feel bad for him. I will mention that it's not a live show, so I'm sure that you're all aware of this at this point, but he apparently went to the hospital today, Fetterman did, after suffering injuries from a fall, and does not sound great, I'll tell you that. But he had a fall from he had a flare-up of ventricular fibrillation, which is not good, not a good thing to have. And it's a heart rhythm. When that gets off, you could potentially not have a heartbeat for a moment or two, and that can cause fainting and death conceivably. It sounds like he's doing okay as of when I'm recording the show, but it's hard to know. He apparently fell in his face. And he's a tall man and he's a heavy man. So who knows how he turned out, but I hope he's okay. Prayers with him. And it's always more interesting when Fetterman's out there. I think he's got a book coming out too. So I want him to make the rounds, because he's going to be a lot of content, and we'll reach out to him on the show. I want to have him on the show. So that would be, hopefully he'll go for it. So that's out there, and prayers to him. All right. But before we get into any more, I want to tell you that if you're a homeowner in America, you need to listen to this. The FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud on the rise called title theft, and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on a single document, use a fake notary stamp, and file it with the county. And just like that, on record, they own your home. Using your ownership, they take out loans against your equity or even sell your property. And you won't know about it until foreclosure or collection notices show up in the mail. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can protect your equity and find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code Marlow at HomeTitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title records, urgent alerts to any changes. And if fraud occurs, their US-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix it. That's pretty good. So US-based team, $1 million to fix it. And I got to tell you that you're under threat. You are. There are so many thieves out there, so many immoral people who are looking to do you harm. And some of you get targeted for politics. Who knows what could motivate someone? But I'll tell you, go to HomeTitleLock.com/Alex Marlow. Promo code Marlow. And you get that free title, history report, free trial, $1 million triple lock protection. It's a great product, and it will protect you just a little bit more. And isn't that what you want to do if you're the leader of your home? So I'm talking about the Obamas and how their victimhood, their victim mentality is just been permeating the American left. And I really think it was the beginning of them losing their civility. Michelle Obama is kind of become a gift. She, I think, was the most popular, I would say, maybe public figure in America. And now everything she says is super irritating and victim-y. And here she is out there. And then now apparently people don't think black women are beautiful or something. Here's what's going on with her.
And we have to start educating people about all kinds of beauty.
Yes.
And our beauty is so powerful and so unique. That it is worthy of the conversation, and it's worthy of demanding the respect that we're owed for who we are and what we offer to the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just, she invents these things to complain about. Is there some sort of an issue in America where we don't think black women are beautiful enough or something? I don't understand. Who are some of the hottest stars in the world? Rihanna, Beyonce, Zendaya. I mean, there's lots of black women who are just completely beloved. I don't feel like there's a shortage of this. This is a new thing. Like, maybe she's right. I don't know, but it's just, I never heard this before. And this is what the left does. This is what woke is all about. Is particularly Gen X and Boomer age wokesters. So I'm talking people 50 plus. I do feel like they go around and they look for things to declare victim status for someone. She's just invents. It feels like every time I play a Michelle Obama clip, she's invented a new way to claim that she's a victim. So this is just the latest one. So I guess if black women are owed more respect than they're getting, I feel like we're plenty respectful of black women who are who deserve it. All right. Interesting. So let's see what else we got going here. But I do think that healthcare thing that's going to come up fast, because the Democrats, that shutdown cost $15 billion a week. Unemployment rate for October will never be known. Kind of amazing. But this is going to be a real puzzle, because we're going to have to get back to work, and Republicans have to start messaging better on affordability and healthcare. Healthcare is the number one issue. This is the number one issue where Republicans are vulnerable to Democrats. Of all the major issues, is the only one where we're consistently bad at messaging, and the solutions are not easy because we're locked into this horrible Obamacare system. And I'll tell you, I'll make some recommendations off the top. First thing that Republicans need to do is blame any lack of affordability on Democrats. This is essential. It's essential to remind people that the Affordable Care Act made healthcare much less affordable for Americans. Every year since Obamacare, healthcare prices have gone up. And that's not just as a matter of total prices, as a matter of percentage of what people spend on healthcare. So anything to make things more affordable did not work. And that needs to be a constant reminder. But then we need to start offering solutions. I'll tell you, there's a doctor shortage in this country. It takes too long to train people to become doctors. It takes a very long time. The whole system is in. Mrs. Dr. Marlow, she's got one more board certification she's going to do. I mean, it's a process that goes into your late 30s, maybe even early 40s to finish your education. You're just going to burn people out doing that stuff. And also, doctor pay very low for younger people, which discourages some people who are financially driven to go into that field. It's such a long road. You get a big paycheck if you can get through it, but you got to get through a lot of stuff. It's just the incentives are not there for us to have the best care. Of course, drug prices, we need to be able to negotiate drug prices down. We need to be able to relieve some of the regulatory burden on pharmaceutical companies. And perhaps what you do in that process, that you negotiate so that the costs are lower for people. So it feels like there are ways to do this so that we can more intelligently negotiate down costs of premiums and drug prices and cut some of the regulatory burden, get more doctors into the system, get doctors through the system faster, and then maybe perhaps, more medical savings account, things like that, things that accumulate perhaps with a tax break, and that things can accumulate interest so that you can actually be saving up money that could benefit you as you get older and need more care. All of that stuff needs to be on the table, but we need to start putting forward solutions. And I'm saying that this is something that people have dedicated their lives to this, and they failed. And we need to do better. We need to do better on messaging on affordability. We need to do better on messaging on healthcare in particular. I'm telling you, the clock is ticking. We've got a few weeks to figure out healthcare. Seriously, one of those complicated issues. We've got to win the messaging war the next few weeks. And if we don't start winning these messaging wars on healthcare and affordability, we are going to be in jeopardy of losing the midterm elections. So Scott Bessent was out there, Treasury Secretary, and he was starting to try to turn the corner on the messaging for healthcare, not just healthcare, but on affordability. And I've got a clip here I want to play with you. Check this out.
Well, it's tough to do a lot of specific things, but I can tell you, Brian, you're going to see some substantial announcements over the next couple of days in terms of things we don't grow here in the United States. Coffee being one of them, bananas, other fruits, things like that. So that will bring the prices down very quickly. And Brian, we inherited this affordability mess. It was the worst inflation 40, 50 years, one of the worst in the nation's history. And affordability has two components. So there's the price level, and then there is income level. And what happened under Biden was the cumulative inflation, stated inflation, CPI, was 23%. But what happened to working Americans, their basket of goods and services, food, insurance, auto payments, was up in the 30s. So they felt a real gigantic differential there. And what we are going to do is, by bringing back high-paying manufacturing jobs, President Trump is going to do what he did in the first term, and that is for hourly workers and working Americans to have real wage increases. So
this is good. So first of all, blame the Democrats. Second of all, explain some of the stuff where maybe a couple products went up because we did the tariffs on countries that are not being cooperative. And so we're going to reshore some of that, and we're getting a huge benefit from this huge dividend that we have coming from tariffs. So we got that coming. And then now we're working diligently to bring back these high-paying jobs. But again, we got a little bit of a time crunch here because we got to get the jobs in by midterm election season. People got to feel that vibe.
So, Brian, imagine two lines. There is the inflation line. We've got that under control. It's leveled out. That is going to start turning down. Then there's the income line, which under Biden, because so many of the jobs were government jobs, you can't get real wage growth from a government job. Real wages are going to increase. Right. And I would expect in the first quarter, second quarter of next year, those two lines are going to cross, and the American people are going to start feeling better. But look, this has been a tough period. So
the Treasury Secretary is supposed to join me on the show next week. So I've been working on that all morning. So hopefully we'll have that for you if we can just get our signals coordinated. It'll be a long sit down. So we'll get through all this stuff. But you can see how he's just starting to work it out. He's one of the more capable messengers in the administration. But some of this, it's still a little wonky. And they've got to hone that. They've got to be able to show the American public exactly where the president's policies have benefited them. And I'm giving some tough love right now, but it's just a reality, is that there needs to be a smooth explanation. And they've got these huge burdens. The healthcare system that was broken by the Democrats, the Bidenflation that was created by the Democrats, the fact that there's so many government jobs that wiping them out could affect the unemployment rate. Of course, the deportations that were taking place and the lack of new illegal immigration is going to alter some of the data. So we've got some headwinds, and I'm saying we got to take it on. Don't shine it on right now. Foreclosures surging 20% as Americans struggle to pay mortgages, according to the Daily Mail. This is all stuff that I'll bring up with the Treasury Secretary when I see him, but I'm going to have some tough questions, because not that I don't think that he's not doing a terrific job and Trump in general is doing a terrific job. As a media person, I'm very sensitive to the messaging, and I'm not feeling the messaging working here. Here's one positive from the Business Times. General Motors wants makers to pull supply chains from China and rewire their supply chains so that they go through the United States of America. And this is the type of reshoring we need to be touting from the rafters. General Motors very closely aligned with Joe Biden and his administration, as I document in a lot in Breaking Biden. All of that's great. And so the thought that we would have more American companies who their DNA is here in America, coming back to America, focusing on America, that's a deep positive. Other things that are noteworthy. I got a clip of Brooke Rollins, the Agriculture Secretary, talking about SNAP fraud. This is another one where we can do things for the American people that I think will be seen as very positive. And one of them is cleaning up things like entitlements, but we have to do it in a smart way. Check this out.
And 20 plus others did not, and we're suing. We're in a litigation right now. But of the 29 that complied, what we have found is staggering. 500,000 people getting benefits 2 times under the same name. 5,000 dead people. 80% of the able-bodied Americans, meaning they can work, they don't have small children at home, they're not taking care of an elderly parent, they can work and they choose not to work, of course, because they're getting significant benefits from the taxpayer. So this light, Laura, that has now been shined on what is perhaps one of the most corrupt, dysfunctional programs in American history, that we are working now. Very big announcements coming next week on this. We are cracking down. We now have a plan to fix it. And we're really, really excited about doing that for the American people.
So this has been going on for many years. I mean, I think I covered this on the radio.
Yeah, it's just remarkable. 80% of able-bodied Americans, they can work. They don't have small children taking care of elderly parent. They can work. They can choose not to work because they're getting significant benefits from the taxpayer. That is good. And she said she's going to have a big announcement coming up next week. But 5,000 dead people on SNAP, 500,000 people getting SNAP twice. That's fraud. And we've got to tamp that out in our culture. Like, we can't have that. We can't have a culture that's tolerant of fraud and stealing from the American people. And we've done that. We've normalized it. And of course, it's the left that's done it. So I think blaming the left effectively is step 1. Fixing the fraud is step 2. And touting the victories is step 3. We got to do it over and over again. All right, a few other items that caught my eye. Trump officials are referring Eric Swalwell for a federal criminal probe over alleged mortgage fraud. This is from the Federal Housing Finance Agency head, Bill Pulte, who I'm told is the guy behind the sort of absurd 50-year mortgage idea, which is, I've decided is not a good idea. I've been working through it, and I'm not into the 50-year mortgage. I've been making a lot of 50-year mortgage jokes. I've been making a lot of 100-year mortgage jokes lately, and I'm thinking about if I took out a 50-year mortgage at certain parts of my life, like when I hit 83, I'll be 43 years or 44 years into the mortgage. I wonder if I'll want to refinance then. And, there's a lot of jokes that could be had there. But this is something that's good, is that he's going around checking out Democrats and figuring out if he feels like they're vulnerable to mortgage fraud, as he clearly busted Tish James for it. And there's total precedent for this because they tried to do this with Trump, and they invented non-crimes in a civil court and then prosecuted Trump as if he was a criminal for them in New York. Whole chapter on this in Breaking the Law. That's the Tish James case. And you can go through it. It was completely absurd start to finish, totally unprecedented. And so now Pulte's going around and saying, well, any Democrat, you guys have better played by all the rules or we're going to bust you. And this is terrific. So I don't love his 50-year mortgage idea, but I do love him policing the left for any sort of illegality that they would have done. And I'll tell you, I read an article on Swalwell. I don't have it in front of me because many years ago, but it just struck me as he seemed like he was living pretty good for a guy in a government salary and who had no success before then and didn't seem to have any money. And obviously it was kind of stupid. He got honeypotted by the Chinese Fang Fang. So not a bright person, didn't seem to have any career success, seems reckless, obviously. And I just didn't really buy that he was living as well as he was. He had some really nice properties, or at least a super nice property in DC, and I'm guessing others. And so maybe it was, here's the point. It's always the people you most expect. That's all I got to say. So let's see what happens. All right, John Nolte's got a story for us on record number of young women wanting to flee America. This is in Gallup. 40% of women aged 15 to 44 This is one where I'm just going to come out and say it. If you want to leave, leave. And young women are voting overwhelmingly for Democrats right now. They're voting for policies that are harming the country. And if they're the ones, this is the demographic that's been hardest to court for Republicans and conservatives, and where it seems like everyone else is pulling back from the woke, hard leftism of the Democrat Party. These younger women, particularly unmarried ones, are the number one group that is running towards all that stuff. And if they also want to leave, so if they don't like this country and they think they want to leave and they're all voting for Democrats if they're here, I'm cool with it. I hope they all do. And it's a shame. I'll say that. I want to be entirely insensitive about it. But 40% don't like this country. What country do they like? It's always fun to quiz people on what countries they like, because they always seem to fantasize about the third world if they're crazy, or countries that are even whiter than America. So, someplace in, Northern Europe. Those always seem to be the most common answers. And if they really like the Chinese, then they go live in China. Like, if that's what you want to do. So I'm fine with it. It's an interesting concept, because people who are not satisfied with our country, none of us are totally satisfied. And it's my life's work, and I know a lot of you are deeply committed to this, to try to improve America and to use your time to try to make America a better place. I think that's great. It's important. But overall, at a certain point, if you really hate the place and you feel comfortable leaving, just please do. Just please take off, and we'll be fine without you. Trust me. John Nolte suggests offering a $25,000 cash bonus to cover their moving expenses. It would be pretty brilliant politically, because if Democrat women felt like we're going to leave and thus stop voting horribly because they'll no longer be citizens, and Trump he's basically buying negative votes. This could be a loophole for voter fraud. You can't pay someone to vote, but could you pay someone to leave so that they couldn't vote? I think that's what Trump's figured out here, or Nolte's figured out, and Trump could offer it. So there you go. That's it. That'll be it for now. It's a good show today. It's a good show from our humble hotel room in an undisclosed location. Thanks to John Cassio for pulling clips. Thanks to Misty for producing the show. Thanks to all of you for telling 10,000 friends and family members about all the hard work we do on the Alex Marlow Show. Liking, subscribing, leaving comments. Send me an email, aloha@alexmarlow.com. If you disagree with anything I say, or you highly agree, or you have a recipe or something like that, all that, questions you want me to ask any of the cool people who stop by the show. I love hearing from you, and keep the two-way interaction coming. All right. Talk to you tomorrow.